Dolphins at the Ravens, Cardinals at the Eagles, Patriots and Bills. We've got all props for all games, including those three on today. New Year's Eve, guys. Welcome to the Road to Millions, last show of the year. Very excited to be with you this morning. Andy, Corbin, and Steve from WagerTalk and SportsMemo.com. We're going to break down all of these games from a props betting perspective. We got a jam-packed show, and as you guys know, we always like to start with little positive vibes from the audience. So give us a like and tell us your best bet for today. Tell us how your year went. If you got a recap on how your year went and you're up, leave it for us in the comment section. You guys know that we love hearing all the good things that is happening to everybody. So let's take a look at Friday's video. Happy New Year. Keep crushing those NHL points unders. Rob says, I will, and I did last night. Thank you very much. John Jr., thanks for the Browns game. Yeah, we had that one pegged pretty good. So, Raw Team, I love this one. Raw Team, edit. Adding David Montgomery anytime touchdown. Normally when you edit a last-second play, they never work out. Nice job, though. That was a good one. Excited for tennis and NHL. Tony says, great show. Rolling with the prop gods. And this was funny. A dude probably owed the Mafia a big favor. He's talking about Jair Alexander running out there trying to torpedo
trying to self-sabotage his own team.
The coin toss. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So while we're going over this promo code here, guys, the Holiday 7, $30 off 7-day pass was $99, discounted to $69. Let's go over some injuries here, guys. So I think probably the biggest one that we have here is it looks like Mostert is not playing. So A-Chain, who's kind of banged up, looks like the main guy. I'm sure they're going to be sprinkling in other running backs, but Raheem Mostert, Adam Schefter reports, could not turn the corner as fast as he normally does, and the Dolphins are not comfortable. So that would be the biggest one. Let's see, what else? It looks like Jamar Chase is a true game-time decision, but they do feel like he will play against the Chiefs. C.J. Stroud, Brock Purdy, Trent Williams, Brian Robinson, Michael Pittman, Mecole Hardman, and Jaden Reed, they all look like they're expected to play today. Big one from the Chiefs is that Isaiah Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire are both going to play. I'm glad they're healthy enough to play, but I was kind of hoping we would only get one of them. I was hoping Pacheco would be out because it would be a really, really good day for Clyde Edwards-Helaire props. But you're getting both of the Chiefs running backs. Kenneth Walker looks like he's good to go against the Steelers. DK Metcalf is good to go against the Steelers. For the Broncos, Jerry Jeudy and Marvin Mims look good to go. And the Commanders, I don't think Jacoby Brissett is going to play. They say they may test it out, but the props are up for Sam Howell. So I would say that he looks good to go. Boy, Steve, you brought it up. You think confidence is riding high for Sam Howell right now?
Yeah, it can't be, right? After getting benched back-to-back weeks, and now he lost the starting job, and now Brissett's out in like a tough matchup too. Not a cake matchup either against the 49ers.
It's brutal. Oh, yeah. So shout out to Sam Howell. The life of being a professional quarterback. Like, you suck, get out of there. You suck, get out of there. Get in there. We've got every bit of faith in you. You can do it against the 49ers. So
we need you.
Yeah, we need you. We need you. So, and then weather-wise, Chicago is going to get a little bit of snow. The accumulation is less than half an inch for the entire day. So it just looks like just kind of a Chicago Sunday in the winter. A little bit of snow here or there, a little bit chilly. Doesn't look like the wind is too bad. And then in Buffalo and New England, looking at the radar and the reports, it looks like the snow and rain is going to come later. So the first part of the game, I think, is going to be good. A little windy, but gust up to 20. That's nothing. So I actually think that game is going to avoid being a really sloppy one. You could get a little moisture, but it looks like it's going to be worse towards the end of the game as opposed to at the beginning. So I think most of the games are pretty good to go. I had talked about fading the Dolphins because they played in Miami for 3 games in a row. Then they go up to Baltimore, and I was like, oh, cold game in Baltimore. And it's like almost 50 degrees at kickoff. So scratch that one. So weather looks to be good to go, and that's your injury report. So all right, guys, let's start going over our props. Andy, Corbin, and Steve reporting as eligible. We are reporting
Wow,
as
huh?
eligible. We're reporting as eligible for our props today. So
Only Andy has reported as eligible.
yeah, true, absolutely. So I guess Steve, I'll go to you. Do you have any passing touchdowns that you like for this week?
I really don't have much, but I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Go back to Baker. He just did putting him out there again at negative 115 at over 1.5. He's hit it in his last three. We mentioned him last week, and he got the job done. 7 of his last 9. No Lattimore for the Saints. It's a low total, but I expect Evans to score this week, so give me Baker over 1.5 again at a decent price.
Yeah, I will piggyback off of that by saying it's contract incentives like next week. I have never gotten more questions about contract incentives than this week. Like everybody is super excited. And unfortunately, it's just a bad year. There's really not much going on, but Baker is one of them. He gets, I think it's $300,000 for every passing category that he finishes in the top 10. And he's doing really well. He's in the top 10. The passing yards is the one that he's like 12th. And what's funny is he's behind Sam Howell. And and you would think, well, you're like, oh, Sam Howell's not going to play, so I'll pass it. And now Sam Howell is playing, and he's also just right behind C.J. Stroud. So Baker props overs are pretty good to go with right now, just from a contract perspective. So, Corbin, did you have any passing touchdown props before we get to the passing
No,
yards? Okay,
no.
let's just jump right to the passing yards. And we will start with the 49ers and Commanders. I like taking quarterbacks facing the 49ers to go over. I think you get a discount on some of the yards. They're 16th in the NFL in passing yards allowed, and a lot of it is garbage time. We saw it with Trevor Siemian against the Browns on Thursday. Like he was an easy under, and then the fourth quarter comes and there's just that nonsense, yucky garbage time yards. I don't know if I can get there with Sam Howell though. I love Jacoby Brissett, but they're putting up 234. That being said, I still lean it. Garbage time counts, and I would take Sam Howell over 234 and a half passing in this game. Steve, we can talk 49ers, Commanders, Dolphins, and Ravens. Do you like any passing props in either of those two games?
Just a slight lean on the Purdy over. He's gotten there in 6 of his last 9, and we know the Commanders have a weak pass defense, but the reason why I'm only going to lean on it is just because I feel like the 49ers are probably playing with, most likely playing with a lead late in this game, so they might not need to throw, and he might not get there due to not throwing a lot late in the game, but I would lean over on Purdy's passing yards over.
Corbin, you like passing props in either of these two games?
I don't really. I kind of echo the same thoughts you guys said about how it's a low total. Probably goes over, but you can't. The mess of a situation, I can't really touch that. Purdy should go over, but I think he's going to be up. And then Lamar and Tua, I actually think both of these could go over. But the problem I have is that they both have pretty good defenses, and particularly for Tua, with if Mo starts out, then I'm not sure 8 chains even 50% fit, quite honestly, at which point they can then just home down on the pass and make it 10 times harder than it needs to be. So if I had to lean out of the 4, I'd probably go Lamar Jackson passing, but can't quite get there with those.
Cardinals and Eagles, Patriots at Bills. Steve, I'll go to you. What do you think about these two games?
I'm actually looking at Jalen Hurts under his passing total this week. It's a play that I really like. He's fallen short in 5 of his last 7 games. This is a game where I think the Eagles are going to have a big lead at the end. They're kind of similar to the game we just talked about, and the Eagles won't need to throw towards the end of this game. So I think that this is a big number for him to get to, and he hasn't been getting there recently anyway. I think it's a lot of ground game for the Eagles today, so give me under on Jalen Hurts.
Like that one. Corbin, you like any of these guys?
I don't. I'll get to the Stafford one that's just after this, but yeah,
Okay.
none of these 4.
Slight lean to Bailey Zappi over 200 and a half. I just think the weather is going to be pretty decent. I think that Zappi is going to be able to throw, and I'll get to one of the guys that I think is going to go over. I think they're coming from behind a little bit. I think they'll make this game a little bit close, but in the end, the Bills will kind of come out ahead. This is a guy that had 256 yards against Denver, 25 of 33 for two touchdowns and no interceptions, and I'm just not really sold on this Bills defense. So Steve, I like your boy Zappy. Maybe the quarterback of the future for you guys. You feeling this? Feeling the Zappy love?
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be the case, but we'll see. We'll see. He's been solid, and I like it as such a low total. It's a good point too that they're going to be playing from behind, so they'll be needing him to throw later in the game.
Rams, Giants, Raiders, Colts. Corbin, let you go first on these two games.
Yeah, so as much as I like the run game for the Rams today, I also quite like Stafford to have a good day. So their Giants 20th versus the pass. Stafford's actually had a good couple of weeks. So his last 4 weeks are 279, 294, 258, and 328. I think they can keep him going in a groove and still keep the run game going. 250 is it 258 now? It's still not that high of a total. I could see him getting into the mid 270, 280s here. The only problem I have as well is I'm not sure how much he's going to be throwing in this matchup because I could see them being up and just running the ball consistently. But yeah, I think he could still go over. That's the one I have for that.
Steve, anything you like in these two games?
Pass for me.
Yeah, I can't get there on anything with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. There's a running back that I like in that game, but we'll talk about Saints, Buccaneers, Titans, and Texans. The Saints have a pretty good pass defense. They've been good, and yet you said it, Steve. I'm not betting against Baker Mayfield. He's a bet on. He's kind of like Flacco right now, where it's like, are we really betting on Flacco overs? Yeah. Are we betting on Baker Mayfield overs? Yeah. So I'm assuming you like his passing, right?
Yeah, I do. I like his passing over, but I also like Derek Carr in the same game over his total as well. He's been a lot better on the road. He's went over this. He's actually had 279 plus in four of his last five road games. And then Tampa, they've allowed the most passing yards. It's a very weak pass defense. They've allowed the most yards on the season. So I actually expect both quarterbacks to go. These are both totals under 250. I expect both quarterbacks to go over the total in this game.
Lockstep agreement completely. Yeah, Baker's been a real. Actually, those Buccaneers have been like Mike Evans and his touchdowns have been a cash cow. Rashad White has been a cash cow. Buccaneers have been really, really good to prop bettors. Corbin, you like anything in these two games?
I'll echo what Steve said about Derek Carr. It was at 240. I think it's gone up to 247. So it's a 7-yard jump since I first started looking at it. The only problem I have is Carr's been a bit hit or miss. He either has that game where he goes for like 300 or he seems to go under. He had 319 last game out. He can be a bit messy. The one problem that I have is that Carr only had 127 last matchup versus the Bucks, even though they rank one of the last in passing defense. If I'm going to take a Carr over, I actually think I prefer Olave to go over, but we'll get to that because he's his only real wide receiver that's had any kind of success. So, but we'll get to that later.
I remember that Tampa Bay game, and I remember what happened is he had a shoulder injury. You look at there was a 3-game stretch where he threw for 103 yards against your Packers, 127 against the Bucks, and 183 against New England. And I remember it because people were like, "Why is he playing?" Like put freaking
Yeah,
put Jameis.
Yeah.
Do you remember that 3-game stretch where it was like,
yeah,
"Put Jameis in, he's hurt." Your boy Will Levis, Steve. You
no, nothing. I'm running
Seems like
from
he's
that
just seen
game.
a ghost. Not him again. Not him.
I'm running from that game. Will Levis involved, Derrick Henry on the road. I'm all set.
Falcons, Bears, Panthers, and Jaguars. I got to tell you guys, Bryce Young at 173.5 is very enticing against this Jacksonville defense, who this passing defense is absolutely atrocious. They are completely banged up. Everybody's going over their passing yards. I know Bryce Young stinks, but 173.5 is completely crazy. Now, that being said, Corbin, you and I used an alt line on Bryce Young a few weeks ago. It was only 150 yards, and we had to sweat that thing out. But this Jaguars pass defense is absolutely terrible. So I do like Bryce Young.
That's actually one of my favorite plays on the board today,
Okay.
surprisingly.
All
So,
right.
yeah, I was looking into it. So he had 312 against my Packers last week. But what I like about that as well is 3 receivers had a good game. So Shark, Phelan, and Tremble all had a good amount of target shares, yards, receptions, all of that. So obviously he's spreading it around nice. It's not like he's just focusing on Phelan anymore. Jags 29th versus the pass, give up an average of 257, and Bryce Young's really showing signs of life. The last 5 weeks, if you look at it as a whole, he's gone over against the Bucks, the Titans, and the Packers, as I mentioned. And the only times he's gone under is against the Falcons and the Saints, who actually have some of the best passing defenses. They're pretty good, so it would make sense. 172 was what it's at. 173 now. It's such a low total that I actually think I'm going to play it. I think that's one of my favorite plays, and I will probably also put in an alt line of 140, 150 with something just to get a tiny little bit of cushion. But yeah, that's one of my favorite plays because the Jags can't stop the pass against anyone, quite honestly, even Bryce Young. So
I love it. Let's go. I love this play. We didn't even talk about this one before the show, so I like it. Steve, Falcons, Bears, Panthers, Jaguars, anything besides Bryce Young, passing-wise?
It's a pass for me on those games.
Steelers, Seahawks, Bengals, and Chiefs. This Mason Rudolph line is dropped, and I lost all the value in it. It was much higher. It was like 10 yards higher. So Mason Rudolph threw for well over this amount last week, except 133 of his yards were yards after a catch just by George Pickens. So I don't buy Mason Rudolph here. Steelers defense I also don't buy. So I'm not going to get to the window on it because I don't like either of these teams. But the Seahawks defense has been playing a lot better. I don't know. This Steelers offense I can't trust. The Seahawks defense has been better, but I still just am not going to get to the window with either of these guys. So, Steve, do you like any quarterbacks in Steelers, Seahawks, Bengals, Chiefs?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at. I'm gonna passing attempts over.
Who is that? I'm sorry.
Can you hear me right now?
Yep.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure because it said something. Okay, yeah, I'm looking at Browning passing attempts over.
Okay.
Against the Chiefs. So he's actually had 42 on the nose his last 2 games. He's had 37 plus in 3 of his last 4 games. And the last 4 quarterbacks that have faced Kansas City have went over their passing attempts total. So they're a team that, the quarterbacks have consistently went over their passing attempts total against. I expect them to need to throw against the Chiefs later in the game. So I'm looking at Browning's over pass attempts.
you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Do you like Smith, Rudolph, Browning, or Mahomes? Any of these plays?
I don't. I can move on to the next game if you do.
Yes, sir.
Wicked. So Stidham. I am going with Stidham over 205. There's a lot of unknowns in this situation, which puts me off maybe making it an official play just because he hasn't played for the Broncos before. The Broncos wide receivers, I don't trust a whole bunch. Obviously, Judy and Sutton. Obviously, Russell's not been getting it done all year, but that's not an awful surprise to me. 205 yards is quite low against a team that are so awful versus the pass in the Chargers. They rank 30th. I like that there's no film really on Stidham. He hasn't played for the Broncos. We don't really know what we're going to get. And I think that can almost benefit him in this matchup. He had 2 starts for the Raiders a couple of years ago where he got 265 versus the 49ers, 219 versus the Chiefs. I think he could easily get over this total against an awful passing defense, quite honestly. So,
Jared Stidham is right up my alley. I love these quarterbacks where there's no film on it. Jake Browning, we saw when he first started, he flew over his passing total. Joe Flacco flew over his passing total. And guess who else flew over his total in his first game? Easton Stick, the guy that he's playing. I'm all in on Jared Stidham. I can't believe it's less than 200 yards. And don't you think Sean Payton is just ready to let him air it out? Like, they finally...
I was going to say, like, test him out, see what you've got. I will say that you just mentioned, I didn't realize, but his line's come down by 11 yards. So I had it at 205 at the start of the week, and it's now 194. So
Perfect. Steve,
even
you
better.
like this one too?
Yeah, that's a good one. Only at 194 is so low. I like the point about no film on the quarterback, and I mean, this Chargers defense has been an over all season long. I mean, they had that stretch for a couple of games where they had stopped Lamar and somebody else. I can't remember who now, but I think it might have been some Lamar Jackson and someone else. Regardless, though, such a low total, I would take the over as well.
Yeah, love that one. I also I don't know. I wouldn't be too mad about taking Easton Stick over 206.5. I think this sneakily could be a decent little high scoring game with this one. I think when you bench Russell Wilson in the manner that they did, and you're frustrated with how he's been playing, and you have a guy like Stidham, I just think he's going to air it out. I was actually looking at, I didn't realize his line had moved down so much. I was looking at his over 26.5 attempts. I think they're just going to let him throw. So, Packers and Vikings. Do you like anything in this one, Corbin?
No, same reason, I guess, with Hall. I think he's going to have a good game because Jair Alexander's out. But I would rather go the route of taking Justin Jefferson for that. I've already mentioned that in a previous show. I can't get there with Love. I don't know what to make of him, quite honestly. So, yeah, just a pass on the passing props for those two for me.
Steve, any passing props in that game?
It's a pass for me as well.
All right, let's move on to the receiving props. We'll start with 49ers, Commanders. I don't know. If I like Sam Howell to throw, I think you're getting some, I don't know, Terry McLaurin, maybe 57.5. I'm probably not going to get to the window on any of these guys. Steve, do you like any of these receivers?
No, it's a pass for me. There's no one I can really get to the window with here.
Corbin?
Yeah, it's a pass for me. We just don't know how much Purdy's going to be throwing. Otherwise, that Ayuk total I would be in love with. But yeah, I can't get there with the fact they could be up 20 points in the first half. So.
Dolphins and Ravens. I've talked about Durham Smythe. I love him this week at 19.5. This is a guy that's had quite a few targets the last couple weeks. He's had 32 and 45 yards, I believe, the last couple weeks, and this is a Ravens team that gives up 47 yards passing. This is one I have already bet at 18.5. It's only moved up to 19.5. No big deal. No Mostert means I think that running game's going to struggle. I think they're going to have to throw. Dolphins are completely banged up in the wide receivers. So I like Smythe, 19.5. This is one of my favorite plays for this week. So, Steve, do you like any of these receivers?
Yeah, I'm looking at the over 40.5 for Isaiah Likely again. We talked about him last week and recommended the over, and he went over. It was his third straight game going over his this total. Dolphins are middle of the pack against tight ends, but I see a potential. The Ravens are going to need to score here to keep up a little bit, and we just know Lamar Jackson has a great relationship with his tight ends, and it seems like he's developing that. I don't want to say to the level of Mark Andrews, but obviously not close to that. But he's leaned on Likely heavily the past 3 weeks, so I would look towards him again.
Corbin, you like any of these receivers?
Yeah, Likely is the one that I had the most of. Steve's already mentioned last 4 weeks. Can you look at his reception line for me as well whilst I read it? So his last 4 weeks, he's had 4, 5, 5, and 3 receptions for 40, 83, 70, and 56. The Dolphins have a good passing defense, so I may lean to the receptions instead. Or I may do what I've done before and do a alt parlay of like 3 receptions and 25 yards. That way it covers you, because I think he's going to get to at least 3 receptions, 3 or 4, and then that gives you just a little buffer on. Surely if he gets 3 or 4 receptions, he's going to get 25 plus yards. So that's where
it looks like the receptions is 3.5 at minus 130. So if you're looking at just the receptions in that one. Alrighty, let's move on to the next game, the Cardinals and the Eagles. This is a tough one. Marquise Brown is out. If I didn't mention, Jalen Waddle is out. He was ruled out yesterday, so that should be common knowledge. But in case you're not aware, Jalen Waddle is not going to play today. So Marquise Brown, I believe, is out for the Cardinals. I don't think I'm going to get to the window on any overs on this one. It's a little bit, it's amazing. A.J. Brown is 83.5 and Devontae Smith is 55.5, and yet we think that it's going to be a big running game. So I don't know. I don't have the guts to take an under, but one of these guys is going under. I don't think they're both going to have monster games in this one. Steve, do you have anything you like receiver-wise in this?
No, it's a pass for me on this one as well.
Corbin?
Yeah, it's a pass. I have a couple of alt line plays, McBride receptions. I think it's at 6.5, which seems way too high as the normal line. But you could get that down to 4 or 5, and I think he's hit like every game that Kyler's played. Alt receptions for Goddard as well. I think it's at 4.5 at plus money. I think he normally lands on almost 4 or 5 exactly, so you could easily get that down to 3 or 4 and probably put both of those together. So that's why I would look only alt lines for those.
All right, let's take a look at receiving yards for Patriots and Bills. Steve, going to you. Patriots, Bills. You like any of these guys?
Yeah, actually, I like Demario Douglas today over 48.5 receiving yards. He had 74 last week, and he's cleared this total now in 3 of his last 5 games. I know Hunter Henry's questionable. I don't know. I haven't heard any word if he's going to play or not yet, but I think the Patriots are going to need to throw late in this game to try to catch up or keep up with the Bills. And Douglas at 48.5 seems like a pretty low number, pretty attainable here.
Devontae Parker's my guy, 38.5. It's up a couple yards. I just love the production. He's had 19 targets the last 3 weeks. Since Zappy took over, he's had 65, 44. He had 64 against the Chargers in a game that they lost 6-0. Even in a game they lost 10-7, he had 42 yards. He's going over this in his receptions, 4, 5, and 4 the last 3 weeks. Like I said, 19 targets. I love this low total on Devontae Parker. Really under the radar. Only moved up 2 yards. I'm okay with that line, playing with this one. And then, are we playing Stephon Diggs under? This is
Tough.
this is the Matthew Berry thing. I don't know if I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Steve. I don't know if you saw Matthew Berry, the fantasy football guy who's now on NBC. People were like, "What do I do with Stephon Diggs?" And he was like, "You're starting Stephon Diggs because he's a big name." And it's like, bro, he's been dog shit for 7 weeks. It's been terrible. They can't get the ball to him. I don't know, Steve. What were you gonna say?
The thing is that he over the years he's been a Patriots killer. He's consistently had big games against the Patriots that I can remember, and but the Patriots do have a strong defense too. It's a lot more stout against the run, but yeah, it could be a get right spot. That's why I can't really get to the window on either side with it. I wouldn't feel comfortable taking over or under on Diggs.
He only had 58 yards against the Patriots earlier.
Yeah, I know.
Listen to these totals: 29, 48, 24, 74, 27, 34. Awful. It's just been terrible, man. So I don't know. Steve,
If I remember, didn't we actually have a play on him versus the Patriots earlier in the year? And I think he almost got there with like one big catch.
He missed.
Right
Remember,
at the
Steve?
end.
They missed him on the long ball where he had beaten the defense by 5 yards. They overthrew him for an 80-yard pass. Yeah.
That's when it was almost to the point where he was like an auto bet to go over week to week at that point early in the year, and then he just it's like he hit a wall.
Yeah. So Corbin, do you like any of these?
Only Cook over his receiving. I can't see what it's. I think I had it at 20. Yeah, 22.5. So he had 3 receptions for 46 versus New England earlier in the season. We've mentioned that the Patriots defense is quite good against the run, which may lead to more opportunities for him in the passing game. My main concern is the fact that he had 0 targets last week. That's the thing that really makes me worried about this play.
Yeah, that would be concerning.
Yeah. But prior to that, he's had great success in the passing game as well. So, receiving game. So yeah, that's the only look in here. I can't take Diggs over or under for the reason that we mentioned. He almost went over last game and has had great success versus the Patriots, but yeah, can't really touch him. So yeah, James Cook is the only one that I've got for that.
We cashed on Ezekiel Elliott on an alt line, and I think I'm going to do it again. The Bills give up 43 yards receiving to running backs. The line, they've caught on, and Zeke is up to 27.5, but you find those alt lines around 20? Yeah, absolutely. I'll be all in on those. Rams and Giants. Corbin, I'll go to you. You liked, you thought Stafford might have a good one. Any of these receivers you like?
No, so I've mentioned it before. I can't trust a particular receiver on the Rams, so I would rather go for just Stafford in this spot. The one I was looking at in this game, receiving wise, was going back to Wan'Dale Robinson. I mentioned it last week, the receptions, and it was great. I don't know how he's going to be with the quarterback change this week because I wasn't expecting Taylor last week. Was a little bit of a surprise. I thought they were going to ride with DeVito for at least a bit longer. 3.5 was where it was at last week, but there's the juice attached to it. I would probably lean to going back to that. I think he's going to have some success today. If they're going to throw the ball, it's going to be to him. So that's where I'd go out of that.
Steve, you like any of the receivers in this Rams Giants?
It's a pass for me.
Let's move on to the Raiders and the Colts. Michael Pittman is going to play. This is just a tough game. It's a complete pass for me. I mean, Devontae Adams should tear us up, but Aiden O'Connell, I don't know how much we can trust him. So this one's just going to be a pass for me. I almost want to take the under on Michael Pittman just because that injury was so bad. I'm not sold that he's 100%. Like last week, he was cleared to play on Friday, and then Saturday they're like, no, he's not cleared to play. I don't know. Something doesn't make sense about it, but I'm probably not going to play it. But Steve, do you like anything Raiders Colts receiving?
No, it's a tough one for me too. I looked in a lot of different directions, but there was just nothing I could really lock in on.
Corbin, do you like any of these guys?
Stay away game for me. I don't want anything to do with it.
Make it unanimous.
Saints and Buccaneers. Corbin, you mentioned Olave. Looks like his line's 67.5. Is this one you like?
Yeah, this is again one of my plays that stood out this week. So he's the main target for Carr. If I'm expecting Carr to have a big game, it's nearly always to Olave. He's over in the last in 3 of his last 4 with 94, 114, 119, 123. The only game he's gone under was against the Panthers, who actually have a sneaky good passing defense, so not an awful surprise. I was going to say my main concern is that he had 6 targets, 1 reception of 4 yards versus the Bucks, but the Carr injury in that game that we've already mentioned kind of sums that, explains that even. But yeah, if they're throwing the ball, it's only to Kamara or Olave really, or the deep ball to Rashid Shaheed. I don't know what his longest is. That's been a great play this year. But yeah, that's where I'd look. Olave over 67.5.
Steve, you like any receivers?
I'm completely with Corbin on Olave. I had him circled as well. He's had 90 plus in 4 of his last 5 games. We talked about the Bucs having a poor pass defense, and they've allowed 9 receivers to have 100 plus yards this season. I'd also look towards on a low total over on Kate Otten. I mentioned him last week. He didn't get there for us, and he's been kind of cold, but he still went over in 6 of his last 10 games. If Mayfield's going to be throwing in this one, he could be a safety blanket, and I could see a little bounce back spot. It won't take much for him to get 27 yards today.
Let's move on to the Titans and the Texans. So one other player that does have a contract incentive is Dalton Schultz, and it's almost like a ladder type thing with him with his receptions. So if I want to pull up his let me pull up his stats where he's at, and he starts getting pretty good incentives at every 10. So if we look at his stats for this year, he is at 52 receptions. If he can get to 60, he gets a bonus. If he gets to 70, he gets a bonus. If he gets to 80, obviously, we're shooting for the stars there. But this is a Titans team that's not very good on defense. C.J. Stroud is back, and C.J. Stroud likes throwing to him. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to look at Dalton Schultz on his receptions. His total's 42.5. I think he's going to get some looks in this game. So, Steve, do you like anything Titans and Texans?
Nah, it's a pass for me on this one.
Corbin?
Yeah, I mentioned it on Friday's show. It's one of my favorite plays again of the week. Noah Brown over his receiving. It's down. It's now at 41.5. It looks like was at 43.5. So obviously Stroud is back from his concussion, and it looks like Nico Collins is going to play, which I actually think will help because it will create some space. It's not like they're going to just double team Noah Brown and lock him down. It's going to at least spread some of the defense around. The Texans will want to get back in the groove with Stroud. I think they're going to throw it quite often. Run game hasn't been particularly successful Last 3 games when both Stroud and Brown have started and finished the game, he's gone over with 57 versus the Panthers. Again, I've mentioned they've got a good passing defense. And then he's had 153 and 172 versus the Bucks and the Bengals. Last 2 weeks, he's had 38 and 82. Obviously, with Keenum at quarterback, so a huge upgrade. I think he can easily get to this 41.5. So
Love it.
I will also say they've sneaked my arch nemesis of Robert Woods back in. 24, 20.
Yes.
They've just snuck him back in. I've been waiting for that line. Oh, I've got to play it. He's so bad that now with Noah Brown and Collins back, if I could play him to have 0 yards, I probably would again. Quite honestly.
The best was when you said if I could play him to have 0 yards, I would, and then he had negative 4.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
Somehow he would have been more productive not playing. Falcons and the Bears. Steve, I'll go to you. Do you like any of these guys?
No, nothing I liked in this one for passing, for receiving yards. No.
Corbin, you like any of these guys?
Oh, another game I just want to avoid, quite honestly.
Me too. Panthers and Jags. I think the general consensus, Corbin, you and me, and Steve, just Bryce Young. Maybe not get too cute with trying to pick receivers. Just if we like Bryce Young to go over, let's just stick with that one. C.J. Beathard playing quarterback for Jaguars. I have no idea what he's going to do in this one, but I would stay away from any of the Jags. So, Corbin, do you like any of the receivers in particular?
As I mentioned, I think he's going to spread it out. So the 3 that I mentioned before were Thielen. Obviously, he's had a good year all round. Only 43.5. Then you have DJ Chark, only at 23.5. Again, he can catch a couple of deep balls, but that's the problem he has. He kind of catches the long ones. And then it's Tremble, only at 13.5. He went over quite emphatically last week. But rather than play all 3 of those, because I feel like you have to either play all 3 or none of those. Just wrap it up and just go for the Bryce Young passing. I feel like that covers all of them a lot better than trying to pick all of them or none of them kind of thing. So,
Steve, any of these receivers?
Pass for me.
Steelers and Seahawks. I'll just Corbin, you did a good job bringing up DK Metcalf a couple weeks ago for his longest reception, 23.5. We talked about that. Yeah, he does it damn near every week. 9 games this year he's done it. And the Steelers have allowed 6 receivers in the last 3 games, I think, to go over a longest reception here. So weather looks to be good in Seattle. So I would take DK Metcalf over his longest reception here. Corbin, you like anything else in this one?
yeah, you already covered the play that I have. So,
Okay.
yeah, DK Metcalf longest is the one that stands out. Other than that, Lockett's been getting quite a few receptions, but this game, I don't quite know how it's going to go with the Steelers. I feel like the Seahawks could be up, they could be down, it could be all over the place, quite honestly. So other than, Lockett receptions is one that I was looking at. The Pat Frymouth ones also interest me. I really liked him last time out. I think it was over 2.5 or 3.5 receptions, and he ended up getting like 0 targets.
0 targets. They didn't even throw at him.
Yeah.
Literally nothing. So that kind of scares me off going back to that one, but it wouldn't surprise me to see him fly over this week out of the blue. So
I would bring up Deontay Johnson under as well. As a guy that had him in fantasy, he's been a disaster. He got hurt. The only guy that likes throwing to him is Mitch Trubisky. I don't understand it. Mitch Trubisky's in. He has touchdowns in like 3 straight games. Mason Rudolph comes in. He has 2 catches for 15 yards in a game. They put up 34 points. Thanks a lot, Deontay Johnson. I don't know what it is with him and Trubisky. Trubisky loves throwing it to him. Everyone else just hates him. Just hates him with a passion. Not going to throw to him. So if Mason Rudolph playing again, Deontay Johnson under everything. So that's my fantasy football rant. I could also
do you think that George Pickens is a bit low considering how much success he had last week? It's one of those that he's probably going to get even more coverage. They're going to be looking out for him even more last week after such a huge game. But at 49.5, it doesn't feel that high. But then I also don't trust Rudolph, quite honestly. So
Well, I don't know, Steve. What do you think about this one? This
It's
past
funny
Sunday?
that Corbin mentions that because I was going to bring up Pickens, and it's because on the surface it seems like such a low total. It seems like he should fly over it after that monster game last week. But it's a lot of yards after the catch and stuff there. But I mean, he has went over in 3 of the last 5. I just think that Pittsburgh, they might be able to. They're probably going to be able to just carve up Seattle on the ground, so they might not need to throw to him. And if he doesn't break a big one, I would almost maybe look towards his longest reception if he gets that. Then but if he does get that, he'd probably go over his passing total. I'm going to stay away from it just because it's almost like they're begging you to take the over, right? It's
It's a
so low
fishy
at the
line. It is
yeah
a
they're begging
fishy line. Yeah,
yeah.
I
So
mean,
it's a stay away from me, but.
his longest catch last week was a basic slant. Like it was not like a crazy amazing like, oh, what a great throw. It was a slant that the defense completely screwed up. So and if you're the Seahawks, honestly, if you're the Seahawks, isn't it just take away George Pickens? Like if you're doing film
Yeah.
work, they're like, well, they didn't even target Fryermuth. They hate Deontay Johnson, and Pickens is pretty much their only guy. You know, Najee Harris thinks Tony Pollard looks great around the goal line. He's a disaster. They apparently hate Jalen Warren as well. I mean,
The
Tony
whole
Pollard.
situation's a mess, quite honestly.
The Steelers are a mess. The Steelers are a mess. Yeah. Can I just say one more thing about Tony Pollard? At some point, can the Cowboys just say this guy hurts us? He's not helping us. He's not doing anything productive. When he dropped that pass last night that he could have taken 40, 50 yards, he was wide open. He just dropped it. Guy's a complete train wreck. Not bitter. Bengals. Bengals.
I'm not better.
Well, you and Robert Woods is like me and Tony Pollard. I just look at Tony Pollard.
Yes.
I just can't believe what happened to him this year. I cannot wrap my head around. And they said, oh well, it's injury, and it's like, well, the injury didn't make him drop the pass last night. The injury doesn't, make his vision that much terrible. So. All right, I've digressed. Bengals and the Chiefs. Steve, do you like any of the receivers in this one? They do have lined out for Jamar Chase 58.5, so looks like we're getting Jamar Chase in this one.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how he's gonna impact things, so I'm just gonna stay away from this game from a receiving props.
Corbin?
Man, I'm so tempted to go back to Travis Kelce. I don't
Me
I don't
too.
think I can I don't think I can do it this week, but he's weird. He has some signs of life. Like he had a nice catch, and then he ran for I think it was 12 or 13 yards. But then he has others where he just drops the ball or he's fumbling. It's a bit messy, but it's so tempting to go back to it, quite honestly, because he's one of the only receivers that are gonna do anything, quite honestly. So
This is the best matchup in the NFL. It's the Bengals. They are the worst at tight ends. They give up 68
exactly.
yards. That being said, you guys know I love the fade the baby theory. I love taking unders or fading golfers or UFC fighters when stuff is going on outside of the game. And obviously, Travis Kelce has the stuff going on with Taylor Swift. But did you guys also see the report that he is making more money on those Pfizer commercials than he is in his football contract?
Wow.
And it's like 13 million for his contract and 20 million for TV commercials. And to me, this is Corbin. Doesn't this remind you of OnlyFans for the UFC fighters, where there's something?
There's so many it's so many distractions. I don't know if it's one particular thing or the fact that he's got. I mentioned it last week with his podcast. He now has that successful thing with his brother going on. He's got this whole Taylor Swift. He's got all these commercials. All it takes is you to lose sight for a couple of weeks, have a bad training session, not put in the same work or have the same exact passion. And it kind of looks like he's dropping off slightly. The concentration doesn't quite look to be there. I'd be interested to see his receptions line actually this week if you can pull that up. But
Yeah,
But
I can
yeah,
pull that
so
up.
many distractions off the field. It can't help the situation. So
No, and the other thing about this is I still think he's hurt. You guys remember he missed the first game of the year.
yeah,
It would not surprise me if after the season is over they just come out and just be like, listen, he was hurt the whole year. And the other thing, Steve, is I was listening to a podcast. Somebody was doing film work. Teams are single covering him. They don't even need to double. They don't even. He's like so not fast this year. So I'm going Kelsey. It's 5.5 Corbin the receptions, and you get it at
yeah.
plus money to take an under. So yeah. So that one. Chargers and Broncos. I actually think Jerry Judy has a pretty decent week, and I think Cortland Sutton has a good week because I think Stidham airs the ball out quite a bit. Um, so I don't know. Is Cortland Sutton out? I think Cortland Sutton may
Yeah,
be out.
Sutton's
Sutton's
out.
out. Never mind. Jerry Judy, I think, has a good one. So, Steve, do you like any of these?
Yeah, I'm with you on Judy. I was just because of Sutton being out. I mean, at 40.5, such a low total. Chargers defense, pass defense especially is poor. So I like that total being so low going over.
Corbin, Chargers, Broncos. Do you like any of these guys?
No, I can't quite get to the window with any of them. I actually will say I forgot to mention Rice on the previous play. I don't know what he's up to, but
63.5.
what's his reception? The receptions is the one I think I like slightly more than that. Because you look at his receptions the last like 5 games or so. So he's had 6, 9, 7, 8, 8, and 4 the last
Nice.
games.
He's at
He's
5.5.
5. I could get there at 5.5. Quite honestly, if they're going to throw the ball, if Kelsey's having any kind of issues, Rice seems to be the one that's stepping up for them in that kind of front. Valdez Scantling is just awful as well. He's another player that I strongly detest from his days at the Packers. He just drops passes left, right, and center. But yeah, I can't get there with the Chargers Broncos game. I'll quickly go for this next one because I've already done it on a previous show. But Justin Jefferson, I don't know what the line. It's gone up
79.5 this morning. Yeah, went up
Yeah,
just
it was.
a bit.
Yeah, went up 1 yard. So he's over in all 6 games that he's started and finished. The Packers obviously suspended Jair Alexander. They're playing 2 rookies in his place. I think he could have a field day, quite honestly. I think any of these receivers for the Vikings can. The one problem is he's going to be double coveraged because obviously I don't think the Vikings have too many other options. But double teaming 2 rookies, they're probably going to get in each other's way trying to cover him anyway. Quite honestly, Vikings at home, division matchup. Everything sets up. They need to win this game. I think Jefferson has torched us in the past, particularly at home. Main concern is the quarterback, but that could also help us being a bit of an unknown. I may look to his longest reception. Again, not sure what that's at, but I think against these rookies, I think he could easily have a couple of big catches. So that's where I'm looking at in that game.
Steve, you like any of these guys?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Aaron Jones. Last week I talked about his under, and he only his number was set at 20.5. He only had 8 receiving yards, so I was right on there. But I'm going opposite side of the coin this week. His number had dipped down to 15.5. It's now up to 17.5. But with it moving down to 15.5, if you look at last week, he only had 1 grab for 8 yards, but he was targeted 3 times. And what I really like about this one is that the Vikings have the highest blitz rate in the NFL by a wide margin. So I'm expecting some dump offs to Aaron Jones here due to the blitz, where Love needs to get out of some tight spots. He throws it to Jones, and if he grabbed maybe one more pass last week, he would have went over. Even at 17.5, he had 17 against Minnesota in the first head-to-head matchup. So I'll take his over this week.
Love it. Let's move on to the rushing props. Looking at 49ers and Commanders. Corbin, you like any of these guys?
No, quite honestly. Maybe Howe rushing, but again, I don't quite want to put anything on Howe, quite honestly. McCaffrey's probably going to have a great game, but again, such a high total, probably gets there on his longest run. Other than that, I can't really get there, no.
Steve, you like anything 49ers, Commanders, Dolphins, and Ravens rushing?
Yeah, real quick on Howell again. I would take the over again. He's went over his last 5, 11 of his last 13. He just consistently gets over this number. 49ers have a strong defense, so they might tie up some of his receivers where he needs to run a little bit at such a low total. I would just take his over again on that one.
Dolphins and Ravens. I can't get there with either of these guys. Gus Edwards let me down last week. I'm not really sure what to make of Justice Hill, and I guess it's probably Lamar Jackson over, but I'm certainly not betting on Devon A-Chain against the Ravens at 50.5. I don't think he's recovered from that injury 100%. He just doesn't quite look as fast as he normally did. And you got to believe the Ravens are going to key in on that big time. All right.
I will say with A-Chain as well, I know because we actually bet on him on his comeback games. For the first half or 3 quarters, he actually didn't have that much production. It's only when they got into the fourth quarter and they were up big that they eventually gave him quite a few more carries. So,
I mean, the Cardinals and Eagles, this is just the rushing game of the day. Swift, Gainwell, we've talked about it ad nauseum. You can parlay both of those together at 68.5 for Swift and at 21.5. Get you to like plus 230. Cardinals' worst rush defense right now. They're giving up 175 yards per game rushing. So I don't know if anything needs to be said more than that. Corbin, anything else you want to add to that one?
no, you kind of nailed it. We've talked about it so much. Swift and Gainwell. If I had to pick, I'd probably go Gainwell. Cardinals have worst rushing defense. He's had 41, 28, and 21. The 21 was against the 49ers. He's been getting around 6 carries or so. Against this defense, if he gets 6 carries, I see him going over. Game script should help. They should be up by so much. The only concern with Gainwell is he seems to come in at the start, get like 3 or 4 rushes, and then we don't see him again till towards the end. He kind of, for some reason, seems to go missing in that middle part of the game. But other than that, yeah, I love both of these to go over. So,
Steve, if you want to add anything to the Cardinals, Eagles, and then Patriots and Bills.
We're all on Swift. The Cardinals gave up 112 yards to Khalil Herbert last week, so I'm liking
Fields.
Yeah, I'm liking this chances. We're all on Swift. You guys. I don't want to beat a dead horse. I don't want to beat it to death.
Oh, trust me, we'll get to that again. I think we will be beating it to death shortly.
Steve, James Cook 65.5 against this Patriot. I love this under. The Patriots defense fading the running backs facing him. I mean, this number is huge.
Yeah, I wouldn't take the over either. I would against the Patriots run defense especially. I would lean over I would lean under as well.
Yeah, the Javonte Williams. What was his total last week? It was in the 50s. Hit 24 yards. I think he had 20 yards in the first quarter, and then it just never.
Yeah, early on it didn't look so good. Yeah.
And Corbin, the Bills. You would think. There's like times where it's like, oh, this is James Cook like territory, and it's like, oh, why is Latavius Murray in for 2 straight drives? Who's Johnson?
They need to kill the clock. They need to kill the clock and run the ball. Now let's just throw it here, there, and everywhere.
Let's throw it deep to Stephon Diggs and double coverage at the pylon.
I'd love to know.
Even Fournette got in the mix last week, right? Leonard Fournette even got in the mix last week. Fournette.
Oh man.
We forgot to mention it, but I'd love to know a Josh Allen interception line springs to mind because we just talked about how nonsensical they just do these things where they just throw the ball in unnecessary situations into double coverage. So I could easily see that as well.
I'll look that up. Steve, you want to talk about Rams, Giants, Raiders, Colts?
I'll do that quickly while Steve's looking it up. But Kyron Williams is just going to fly over. The one problem is the total is so high. So I'll get to that later, how I'm going to use an alt line. I can't quite get there on Barkley. I was considering taking an under. At this point in the season, other than Barkley trying to prove a point and to get a contract, what are they actually using him for? Like what is the point in using him and trying to... If the Giants want to keep Barkley, why would they risk another injury or just piling up his usage? And if they're not, then I guess Barkley wants to prove a point, but he might also want to save himself for next year. I think he's already demonstrated what he is. I don't think he necessarily has to prove anything to anyone anymore. So if I had to look, I'd go under for that one. So,
Steve, what do you like? Rams, Giants, Raiders, Colts?
So just real quick, that Josh Allen interception is negative 125 for
Sounds
and then for Kyron Williams, I like his, just a quick pivot to over 19.5 rushing attempts. he's run over this in his last 4 games, 6 of his last 8. It's basically whenever he's been healthy and played the game, he's had 20 plus carries. I expect the Rams to be, even though they're traveling cross country, I expect them to be leading late and kind of salting away the game. Giants, no surprise, they allow the 6th most running back rushing attempts, so I like his attempts over this week.
Love it. Raiders and Colts. It's kind of messy here. There's only one guy I like. I'll save him for my best bet. Corbin, do you like anything Raiders, Colts?
No, I just want to avoid the game.
Saints, Buccaneers, and Titans and Texans. Steve, coming to you. Anything you like in these two games?
No, it's a pass for me on these two. I really was excited to do something. I took Tajay Spears last week over, and I wanted to go back to him again this week, especially with I wish there was almost more time in the season because there would be perfect spots to fade. Derrick Henry on the road just is a different player than he is at home. So I like fading him when he's on the road. So I don't expect it's a low total. I wouldn't take the under necessarily on him, but I was excited to take the over on Spears this week. But I'm laying off just because the Texans do have a strong run defense. The more I look at it, they've actually been pretty strong against individual running backs. So yeah, it's a pass for me.
All right. Corbin, you like any rushing in these two games?
Rashad White's the one that interests me. I actually think I know what you guys said about Baker, but the Saints defense is so hard to throw on that I think he's going to have some success running the ball. I'd be interested to see his rushing attempts because I was just looking it up. So last week he rushed 20 times for only 39 yards. So average of 2 yards a carry, which is awful, quite honestly. But outside of that, he's had 21 carries, 25 carries, 20 carries, 15, 20, 20. So he's getting a lot of carries. I don't know if I would prefer his rushing attempts. I can't see what
17 and a half. It's pretty good.
That sounds pretty good to me. I've mentioned
Pretty
he's got
good.
into the 20s multiple times. I will say he rushed 15 times for 56 yards versus Saints earlier in the year. He's probably another one that I would chuck an alt line of like 40 or 50 with probably Kyron Williams or some of these other names that we've mentioned that are at such high totals. But yeah, that's where I'd lean in that game.
Falcons, Bears, Panthers, and Jaguar. I mean, literally, we got the Bears with 4 guys: Dante Foreman, Justin Fields, Roshan Johnson, Khalil Herbert. I mean, like the Bears and running backs are just, like, could you trade a couple for an offensive lineman to help your quarterback out in this one? So, Steve, Falcons and Bears, Panthers and Jaguars. Do you like any of these guys?
I for the Panthers Jaguars, ATN hasn't been good recently. He's been pretty cold, but the Panthers' run defense is just horrible. They're like dead last against running backs. And last week, Aaron Jones was the first Packer this season to have 100-plus yard rushing or receiving game all season long. And it was Aaron Jones for 127 on the ground against the Panthers. So I think ATN, I think that the Jaguars lean on him with the quarterback situation as well. And then for the Bears game, I'll get to that in my best bet.
Love it. Corbin, you like any of these running backs?
I liked ETN under, but Steve's nailed that. I have nothing more to add. He's nailed that part. Other than that, nothing really. Just some more messy games that I don't really want much to do with at that point. So
Steelers.
I think there's much better looks. So
yeah, Steelers and Seahawks. I don't like anything. Bengals and Chiefs. Real bummer that that we don't get clarity for the Chiefs backfield, but I could see Joe Mixon 43.5. This Chiefs defense is just slowly getting worse as the year goes on. So I maybe Mixon. I like Chase Brown's talent. He just doesn't seem to get enough carries on there, but nothing strong that I'm going to get to the window on. Steve, do you like anything in these two games?
Nothing strong for me either. I lean Najee Harris over 55.5, just based on the Seahawks having a poor run defense, but they're not that good against the pass either. So, yeah, it's a pass for me ultimately.
Corbin?
Yeah, you mentioned Chase Brown. I went to his receiving last week. Just doesn't get enough opportunity. I think he has the most potential. I think he could be better than Mixon, but yeah, just not enough carries or receptions to do anything with that.
Last two games, and we're going to get to some actionable information here and some bets. Chargers and Broncos. Austin Eckler's a sneaky one with a contract incentive. It's not a huge one. He's going to need about 200 yards rushing and receiving over the next 2 weeks. I thought he was dead in the water last week. Instead, they decided, nope, he's our workhorse, even though we're out of the playoffs, which makes no sense to me. I still don't understand what some of these NFL teams are doing. Maybe he wants to get the extension, or not the extension, but wants to get the contract incentive. He's a free agent. You can't get a better matchup for running backs than Broncos. So if you're going to take Eckler, it's rushing and receiving, in my opinion. And then the Packers and Vikings, I don't have anything on. Corbin, do you like any of these guys?
No, I've mentioned that everyone runs over the Packers, quite honestly. So probably Chandler will go over. Problem is, I don't know what the split's going to be like with him and Mattison back. So yeah, I'd probably just pass on that this week. So
Steve?
It's a pass for me as well.
I would also point out Jordan Love has stopped running the ball completely. That's why you're getting this 8.5 number. It's so low though he can get on one scramble, but
yeah, you can't really take a over on a quarterback that low.
no. So, Steve, you got a 5% play up. Go ahead and tell us about that one.
Yeah, I have a 5% NFL play that's going to be going off for an early game this afternoon. Running pretty hot recently, 12-5 all sports run, 5-2 NFL run, and I'll also have a hoops pack up tonight as well. I'm 23-13 in December for hoops plays, and doing really well with my college basketball player prop, 6-1 on my last 7 of those. So yeah, use that code Holiday7. It's a good pass. You get only less than $10 a day for that one.
All right, let's get into it. Same game parlay. Corbin, you like Kyron Williams, you like the Rams, and I believe you're going to put it with DeAndre Swift, correct?
Yeah, so had real problems this week on the same game parlay. Nothing really stood out to me enough to put as a whole game. So we've got Kyron Williams, 70 plus rushing, 6 straight. His lowest was 88 versus the Browns. Giants are 29th versus the Rush. Game script should be in his favor, which then leads into why I think the Rams are going to win this quite comfortably. They've won 5 of their last 6 with their only loss in overtime to the Ravens. Giants are changing quarterback. Seems they have no real plan or strategy. Kind of just all over the place. They lost back to back and should have probably lost to the Packers. They just look like a mess. There's, as I mentioned, with I can't pick a receiver or something specific. I only want to play stuff on the Rams side because I don't trust the Giants. So instead of trying to force something in to make it fit, I'm going to go with Swift, 40 plus rushing. We've done it to death, as we said. Cardinals, awful rushing defense, worst in the league, averaging 147 against. Over in 7 of 9 with the only games he's gone under. Against the Cowboys, he still got 39, but they were down big. And against the 49ers, who have a great rushing defense and also down big. So I'm going to combine all of that for negative 101.
Love it. Great price on that one. And then you got a couple alt plays here, so walk us through these spreads.
Yeah, so I have a couple of plays this week. I really like all these alt lines. I will say, as I've mentioned before, if you like 2 or 3 of these, you can mix and match all of these. They don't have to go together. Or if you want to put them with any of the same game parlay stuff from the slide before, I'll quickly try and go through all of them. Vikings plus 7.5. No Jair Alexander. I think our defense is going to get eaten alive. Don't think we can stop the run or the pass. I expect this to be high scoring.
It's a bad spot to be in.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thanks, Steve. That really helps my feelings right now. Division matchup. They're at home. Playoff implications. I can't see the Vikings losing by more than 7 at best. Patriots, I'm going to go to your team, Stephen. I'm actually going to give praise to your team. I think the Patriots are playing all right. They've got a good defense. Still don't trust their offense particularly, but they've made it work with Ezekiel Elliott coming out of the backfield. I think they're building for next year somehow. The Bills seem to struggle to blow these teams away. Quite often, they bring their level down to their opponents. Division game, 5 of the last 6 head-to-heads. New England has covered, including a 29-25 win this season. So to get 24.5 is such a huge total. I can't imagine Belichick losing by that amount. 49ers -5 versus the Commanders. Bounce back game. Commanders are just all over the place. Won by 17 when they played last year. I could see a win by an even bigger margin. So take the -5, and those 3 together gets you -124. And then the second alt parlay I've gone for Eagles -3 against the Cardinals. a bounce back spot for them. Lost 3 of their last 4, but they looked better last time out against the Giants, who obviously are a weaker opposition to the ones they lost to. We've mentioned they're going to run all over the Cardinals. I don't see much threat coming back the other way. They won the head-to-head last year, and the Cardinals have lost 4 of their last 5. So we'll take Eagles -3. We'll take the Panthers +17.5. It's a lot of points, and the Panthers' defense has been playing sneakily better, particularly their passing defense. Jags look all over the place. Again, I'm not quite sure what their plan is with Trevor Lawrence. I don't know what they're thinking over there playing him when he should have been resting, quite honestly. Now, just who knows what's going on there. Expecting Bryce Young to have success. Had a 300-plus passing day last time out. I think they're going to roll the momentum into this one. They probably should have beaten the Packers last week. Obviously, went to overtime, and they're playing Jags, who have an awful passing defense. We'll take the Rams +7. I expect them to win this game, so getting +7 versus the Giants. They've won 5 of their last 6. The only loss was to the Ravens in overtime. Giants changing their quarterback and all over the place. No strategy. Commanders are the only team to lose by more than 7 to the Giants, and that's saying something about those two teams, because they both suck quite badly. And then finally, Texans +7.5 to the Titans. Bounce back for Stroud coming back. I think they're going to put him back in the groove. Titans don't blow anyone away. They've covered 7.5 to just one team. It's the Bengals this year, when they were having all their mess at the start of the season. And the Texans won the head-to-head 2 weeks ago, 19-16, with Case Keenum playing. So huge upgrade at quarterback, and we'll take all of that for -159.
All right, Steve. The Paydirt parlay is catching fire here towards the end
Pressure's
of the season.
on now.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's walk through who you like for anytime touchdowns this week.
So I'll start with Mike Evans, even though he's second on the list. He was part of the Paydirt parlay, and he's just become a mainstay for us here on the anytime touchdown scores. 11 of 15 on the year, 6 of 7 at home. No Lattimore to get in the way today against New Orleans. And then we all seem to like Kyron Williams, and even at -160, I'm going to include him in the Paydirt parlay. Obviously, he's went over in his last 2, 8 of 11 on the season. Basically, when he's been healthy, I shouldn't say over. He's basically scores whenever he plays. He's 8 of 11 games. He's had a touchdown. Giants 4th most touchdowns allowed to opposing running backs. He's had 6 100-plus yard games this season, and I fully expect the Rams to be playing with a lead and running late. Etienne's a guy that is I'm looking to have a bounce back this week, just because I feel like they're going to try to run the ball to take the pressure off the quarterback situation with no Trevor Lawrence. The Panthers have allowed the most running back touchdowns this season with 19. We saw Aaron Jones carve them up with, like I had mentioned earlier in the show, first Packer with a 100-plus yard game rushing or receiving against anyone. He carved them up last week, and I expect them to lean on Etienne. And then Fields, I really like him a lot this week, especially for the price. He scored in 2 of his last 3 games, and he's been really strong, since he's come back from his injury, averaging 70-plus yards per game on the ground in the 5 games since he's returned. Atlanta allows the 3rd most rushing touchdowns to opposing quarterbacks. And I think that, I thought I was expecting there to be some field conditions in this one, but it's going to be cold. It's going to be outdoors, and could be some spots where he can break free and get into the end zone here for us. And I'd also just I didn't include it on my list, but I would look towards, we mentioned Cade Otton as a sleeper last week, and he's +270 this week. He didn't get the job done, but he's second on the Bucs in touchdowns. We expect Baker to throw a couple more this week, and New Orleans allows the 3rd most touchdowns to opposing tight ends. So for this week's Paydirt parlay, we're going to wrap up Kyron Williams, Mike Evans, and Justin Fields, all at +782, and hopefully cash our 3rd one in the past 4 weeks. So that'd be great.
Love it, man. Oh, love it. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, Mike Evans. I mean, he's got to be the anytime touchdown MVP, right? The guy's been.
It's said it, especially at home. It's kind of like Derrick Henry. They're just both great players, but obviously so much better at home. And Evans, 6 of 7 home games this year, and 11 of 15 on the season. He's basically almost like a set it and forget it type of guy at this point.
All right, it is time for our best bets. I will go first. Josh Jacobs being doubtful, that means he's going to be out. I'll take Zamir White over 74.5 rushing. Just going to keep fading this Colts rush defense, decimated by injuries and lack of talent. So this is this is a Colts team that this is a Colts team that has allowed 130.7 yards per game this season, 120 in their last 3 games, and Zamir White's the guy. With Josh Jacobs out, he got all the carries. He had 145 yards last week. I don't think he's going to see much. I don't think he's going to struggle at all against the Colts. I was hoping to get Isaiah Pacheco out and Josh Jacobs out. Only got one of them, but that's okay. Zamir White over his rushing is absolutely a play for me. So, Steve, what do you like about Justin Fields here?
Yeah, I kind of touched on him during the touchdown segment, but he's went over this total in 4 or 5 games since he's returned from injury, and he's averaging 70 yards per game on the ground since his return. I'm expecting the field conditions to play into things here a little bit. Just with Atlanta, I don't trust them playing outdoors just in general. It's going to be cold. I was expecting maybe a little bit of snow, but I don't think we're going to get that. But maybe a little bit of wind. I just think that he's going to have a lot of success on the ground today. And Atlanta allows the 6th most yards to opposing quarterbacks on the ground. And that's despite really not facing anyone. They faced Kyler Murray, but really no one's carved them up. But they just consistently allow quarterbacks to get mid-range numbers. I expect Fields to have success on the ground today and go over this total.
All right, Corbin, you're going to do we're going to do some alt lines here for your best bet. Walk us through these.
Yeah, so it's basically the same game parlay that I did, but I'm going to swap the Rams for the 49ers. It really doesn't actually impact the price a whole lot, which is a bit surprising to me. I think it was about negative 120 for this. So Kyron Williams, 6 straight, lowest of 88 yards versus the Browns. Giants 29th versus the rush. Game script should be in our favor. So expecting him to get over 70. He's also getting loads of rush attempts, so the volume should be there. 49ers, money line, bounce back game for them. Commanders all over the place, won by 17 last year. Should easily win this game, quite honestly, by double digits. And then Swift, 40 plus rushing yards again against the Cardinals. Terrible rushing defense. Game script, all of that stuff mixed together. Swift should easily go over. So.
Love it there. Love it there. So, all right, guys. I hope you guys have a great New Year's Eve. Make sure you use that promo code HOLIDAY7. It gets $30 off a 7-day pass. You can use that. WagerTalk.com. Andy Lang. You can use it at SportsMemo.com for Steve. Guys, it's been a really great 2023. Expect to end it with some good amount of profits today. Make sure you are safe tonight in all of your partying and all of your festivities. So let's end 2023 on a profitable note. Good luck on all your plays. We'll see everyone next time on the Road to Millions.
Good luck.
Good luck.